6:34. Welcome back to the show this morning. I'm your host, Lance Roberts. Danny Ratliff joining me. Okay, I'm done messing around. We'll talk about your stuff now. So if you're driving to work this morning, tape your eyeballs open because we're about to talk about financial planning stuff.
Hey, I told you I got good with silence, right, Brent?
Great lead in.
I'm teasing.
Well, lots of things changing and
Yes.
changing rather quickly, and I think we're going to continuously kind of be on our toes here for the next several weeks, especially depending on what happens with the election. So, one thing that is out there right now, there is a new House Ways and Means Committee bill. So this is.
Let me just tell you what that means. When there's a House Ways and Means Committee, it's probably something you're going to lose money on. But okay, let's go with
Well,
that.
It's ways that they take your means.
Exactly.
Well, it's likely this may not amount to much, right? Because we've seen many of these bills come through, not a whole lot behind them. But, one thing that we've, last year, so we had the Secure Act back in December of 2019. So setting every community up for Retirement Enhancement Act. We know that there's a lot of that did not do just that. Like you mentioned, Lance, it actually takes from you. So that was where the death of the stretch IRA occurred. But so one thing that we also saw then was that they changed the RMD, required minimum distribution age, for 401ks, IRAs, retirement accounts from 70 and a half to 72. This new bill.
But hold on a second. Just for people who don't understand it, you're throwing out all these acronyms and stuff. And I was like, look, I meet with people all the time.
Correct.
That have no idea what RMD stands for. And they have to take it. They have no idea what it is, but they have to take it.
So we're going to get there. So it's your required minimum distribution. When you reach the age that they're requiring you, which was 70 and a half, now it's 72. The new bill is saying it's going to be 75. You must take a certain amount. They have a divisor that the IRS gives you each and every year that you will divide your account balance on December 31st by, and that is the amount that you must take. They do this, so essentially those funds must be taxed at some point. So remember, most of these funds are all pre-tax, meaning you have not paid tax on them.
Can I ask you a question, though?
Yeah.
There's something about this. This has always bothered me about RMDs. First of all, they allow you to save into your 401k plan, like Danny said, right? Your 401k plan, or you contribute to your IRA, and you can save money. Well, first of all, they limit you on how much you can save, right? They say you can only save, $20,000 a year or whatever into your 401k. You only put $5,000 in an IRA. And then we complain about the fact that most people don't have near enough savings in retirement, but they limit the amount you can save. Why do they care? I mean, first of all, they care because they want your tax dollars.
Well,
right?
then,
but
yeah.
This is the real reason. But if can I be president for a day? I would remove all those limits and say, look, let's get rid of, save as much as you possibly can. Save as much as you want. It makes the economy better long term because it takes less dependency off social welfare in retirement.
Correct.
Right? The other thing is get rid of these RMDs altogether.
I agree.
And that would look. You're going to get your taxes at some point, right? The whole point's to tax, and you tax it if somebody dies and passes it to their kids instead of having these 5-year withdrawal issues. Let it go 100% to the kids on the day of death. Tax it. Be done with it.
Well, and that's some of the things that they're actually looking at doing, right? So they got rid of the stretch IRA so that once these funds do go to your child, historically you've been able to actually stretch that out over your lifetime.
Right.
Now they're saying you have a 10-year window, which all of it must be done. I think there's going to be further legislation, depending on who is president, that they're talking about actually trying to get through. That's going to make it difficult to pass funds like building a legacy.
Yeah.
It's going to be much more difficult for that. And they're going to point at these very wealthy families and say, well, look at these guys. This guy's an idiot. He has all this money. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's going to impact so much more. And so that's one thing that we feel like we're really going to have to be planning for. So
yeah, I mean, they're going after the small 1%.
Correct.
At the expense of the 99% where it really hurts them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's going to hurt the average Joe quite a bit more than it will these other guys. Because look, they have the resources and the means to find those loopholes that not everybody does. And so that's one thing that we're striving to do is expose those things, find where those loopholes may be so that everyone can take advantage of it. So we're going to be talking about this and much more.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, but you're bringing up good points.
Wait a second. This is boring, Lance. Go to bed.
I know, but no, you're bringing up good points here. But, we talk about, Roth IRA conversions.
Correct.
Right? And, and this is, part of this discussion, right? This change of RMDs and all this is also one of the reasons that people with means are doing things to get ahead of potentially higher taxes under a potential Biden administration, right?
Correct.
Changes to these IRS rules and tax laws, et cetera. Doing Roth IRA conversions to go from a pre-tax account, pay taxes at a lower rate now, go to a tax-free issue with no RMD down the road, right? And potentially also using whole life insurance policies for building tax-free income and tax-free wealth in retirement annuities, et cetera, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so I think this is going to be very crucial. I was talking to CPA yesterday, and we literally said there may not be much sleep for us over the next 2 months, depending on how the election goes, because we're going to have to be, we're going to have to be in the weeds to ensure that we're doing the right thing for clients, understanding exactly the implications. And we may have to put things in place rather quickly, depending on how things go. And so, I can't imagine what an average day is going to look like here very soon, right? And it's already pretty wild. But that's exactly right, Lance. So the idea is that you want to diversify. You want to have funds in many different places, so everything's not just in that one spot where you are going to be controlled by Uncle Sam on how you must make these distributions. And then, we've talked about taxes. If you've listened to the show, you know that I have been beating a drum for years now on that we are likely going to see higher taxes. This stimulus, all the things that they've thrown out, the additional deficit that we're now running since this pandemic, it has to make this, magnify it and probably make it happen much quicker, regardless of who's elected. And so I think we have to be very cautious here. And this is why we always talk about diversification of accounts, making sure that you can have some type of control down the road so that you're not hit with all these additional stealth taxes. Lance, I can't tell you how many times we visit with somebody and they may have an advisor already or they don't. And we'll talk about, Social Security's taxed. Medicare premiums have additional surcharges if you take too much money out. And they're like, wait, what? Nobody's ever told me this. And they're stuck with all these funds in one place. So we do ourselves a disservice so often that, we think we're doing a good job because we're putting these funds away. And you're probably doing much better than most. But we have to get more strategic and more thoughtful on how we do these things so that you do have that flexibility. It's not just about distribution. It's about the accumulation. So we get people who say, Danny, you know what? I'm just not ready for a financial plan. I don't need it. I've got 5 years to retirement, or I'm not, I'll do it when I'm ready to retire. Man, you're really hurting yourself, because I think there's so many tools and resources out there that you could be utilizing now prior to that so that you do have that flexibility in retirement.
And one thing that people really make, in my opinion, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they shove all their money into a 401k or an IRA trying to avoid taxes today. My personal opinion, and Danny may disagree with me, but when you look at your asset balances, 50% of your money should be in an account you already paid tax on. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that when you get into retirement, you've already paid tax on that money. So now as you begin to take these distributions from IRAs and 401ks, you can offset that with withdrawals from your taxable account. You've already paid tax money. You can control your tax bracket better in retirement by having some after-tax assets to work with. The other thing is an after-tax account, you can offset losses and take gains and take advantage of capital gains tax and dividend tax rates in a taxable account that you forgo in an IRA or SEP IRA or 401k. So there's advantages to paying tax on money down. No, we don't like paying taxes. But when you start to model this out long term, and again, like Danny said, do your financial plan early so you'll understand these things and say, this is how much money I should have in a taxable account where I can really take advantage of some opportunities. And for heaven's sakes, do not put real estate in an IRA. You lose all the tax benefits of owning real estate by sticking in an IRA. Worst decision you can possibly make, but there's radio show after television commercial tells you to do this. Horrible idea long-term on your tax planning. But again, this is why financial planning and tax planning, it will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in retirement if you do it correctly.
Yeah, and that's what people, I think, it's tough to understand. We focus so much on the returns on the investment, but we need to focus on the other side of the ledger as well as how you do these things. And so you're right, Lance. We look at a lot of these, and you look at the additional alpha that it brings. It's huge. Yeah. And so we want to look at those returns. One other thing on that Securing a Strong Retirement Act of 2020, which I think you'll find rather humorous, is that if you have less than $100,000 in your account on December 31st, they're going to let you forego your RMD. My thought is, if you have less than $100,000, you probably need it.
Yeah, you need the money. Well, this is the problem. And when we come back from the break, I want to say something a little bit about taxes, and this idea of only taxing the wealthy, right? We'll talk about why that's not the case when we come back from the break. Danny Ratliff joining me this morning. You're listening to The Real Investment Show. Get by the website, realinvestmentadvice.com. The Candid Coffee the Candid Coffee Policy Over Politics webinar is there for you to download. And also you can get registered for our upcoming webinar we've got on the 14th, which we'll be discussing now, post-election, what it all means. That's of course if by November the 14th we know who the president is. We'll talk about that as well. Don't go away. Be right back.
Now come on, what was I supposed to do? He was out of town.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for the Real Investment Report now at realinvestmentadvice.com.
With the last ballot tallied, what will America's legacy be? What does the future hold for your retirement, your family, for you beyond the election? Richard Rosso and Danny Ratliff's next Candid Coffee will specifically address your questions about money, retirement, risk management, and how to protect your household against financial vulnerability, regardless of who's in charge. Send your questions and join this post-election go-to webinar at realinvestmentadvice.com. Candid Coffee with Ratliff and Rosso at realinvestmentadvice.com.